ජීවිතේ වැඩිපුර ලැබෙන හොඳම දේවල් විඳින්න. දැන් SLT broadband වෙතින් 75% දක්වා වැඩිපුර data සතුට ජනවාරි 1 වෙනිදා සිට ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම්.
Good evening. Tonight, a friendly hand. President Maithripala Sirisena's visit to Japan locks in ample aid. Relief in small doses. WhatsApp too will be made available from midnight. Facebook, however, will have to wait as its officials are set to meet President's secretary tomorrow.
A large number of people are using WhatsApp and Viber to speak to their relations in the Middle East.
Time for responsibility. The Prime Minister says the country is looking at ways to regulate social media, with discussions towards the end already underway. Gearing up for elections. Minister of Provincial Councils and Local Government intends to present the new delimitation report on provincial councils in Parliament next week.
The question is the Parliament has to decide whether they are happy with this delimitation report or not. But there is also a concern that 50-50 should be changed.
End of a great defining scientist. The most brilliant brain to walk the earth after Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, passes away. It's 9 o'clock on the dot, and we are coming to you live on First at 9 with the very latest from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Good evening, everyone. I'm Mahesh Johnny. We have a full report on the visit of the President to Japan, and later on in the show, we will update you with regard to Facebook censorship. But first, we begin with a tribute to one of the greatest minds of the 21st century. Today we bid farewell to one of the most brilliant minds the world has ever seen, British physicist Professor Stephen Hawking. An epoch-defining scientist and arguably the most remarkable mind to have walked this earth since Albert Einstein, Professor Hawking strived and dedicated his life to provide answers to questions on the existence of the universe. Professor Hawking's family said that he died peacefully at his home in Cambridge at the age of 76.
Stephen Hawking probed the very limits of human understanding, both in the vastness of space and in the bizarre submolecular world of quantum theory, which he said could predict what happens at the beginning and end of time. But at the age of 22, Professor Hawking was given only a few years to live after being diagnosed with a rare form of motor neuron disease. The illness left him in a wheelchair and largely unable to speak except through a voice synthesizer. That, however, did not stop the genius of this extraordinary man from entering the world. In 1988, Hawking published a book targeting non-scientists to help explain fundamental questions such as how the universe started and whether it will end. It set a record by spending more than 5 years on the Sunday Times bestseller list and was the #1 all-time book on their list as of 2014. Among Hawking's other accolades, in 1982 he received the Commander of the Order of the British Empire honour and was awarded the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 2009.
From his wheelchair, he's led us on a journey to the farthest and strangest reaches of the cosmos. In so doing, he has stirred our imagination and shown us the power of the human spirit here on Earth.
However, surprisingly, he has never won a Nobel Prize. But besides his out-of-this-world genius, Hawking still faced day-to-day issues as any ordinary man would. He has been married twice. He married undergraduate Jane Wilder in July of 1965, and the couple had 3 children, Robert, Lucy and Timothy. But Hawking tells in his 2013 memoir how Wilder became more and more depressed as her husband's condition worsened. He divorced Wilder in 1990 and in 1995 married Elaine Mason, one of his nurses, whose ex-husband David had designed the electronic voice synthesizer that allowed him to communicate. That also took its emotional toll on her, and the pair divorced in 2007. The scientist gained popularity outside the academic world as well, and appeared in several TV shows, including The Simpsons and The Big Bang Theory. He was portrayed in both TV and film, recently by Oscar winner Eddie Redmayne in The Theory of Everything.
I reverse the process all the way back to see what happened at the beginning of time itself.
Wind back the clock.
Wind back the clock. Until you get the universe born from a black hole exploding.
Meanwhile, many took to Twitter to express their sadness over the death of Professor Stephen Hawking. Professor Hawking proved to the world that there are no boundaries to what we as human beings can achieve. Today, the world bids farewell to one of the greatest minds to have existed in the history of mankind. It is only fitting now that we leave you with the profound words spoken by Professor Hawking at the 2012 Paralympic Games opening ceremony.
Ever since the dawn of civilization, people have craved for an understanding of the underlying order of the world. There ought to be something very special about the boundary conditions of the universe. And what can be more special than that there is no boundary? And there should be no boundary to human endeavor. We are all different. There is no such thing as a standard or run-of-the-mill human being, but we share the same human spirit.
Let's move on to local stories we have for you tonight. Chairman of the Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, Austin Fernando, says restrictions imposed on messenger apps WhatsApp will be lifted from midnight today. Meanwhile, a statement issued by the President's Media Division said that President Maithripala Sirisena instructed to lift the restrictions on WhatsApp, however emphasizing that a regulatory system was necessary to prevent the misuse of social media to spread racism, communalism and disrupt day-to-day life. The easing of restrictions come almost a week after the government shut down social media and messaging networks including Facebook, WhatsApp and Viber following incidents of unrest in some areas of Kandy with a view to control extremist campaigns. Yesterday, government announced the lifting of restrictions imposed on messaging platform Viber effective from midnight. The statement from President's Media Division went on to say that government is taking measures to implement necessary monitoring and surveillance methods in order to lift the restrictions on Facebook. A team of Facebook officials due in the island will join discussions chaired by President Secretary Austin Fernando tomorrow at the Presidential Secretariat, during which a mechanism to ensure the protection and surveillance necessary to lift restrictions on access to Facebook will be focused. Meanwhile, Chairman of the Sri Lanka Telecommunications Regulatory Commission, Austin Fernando, expressed views to First and Nine on lifting of the ban on WhatsApp by midnight today.
We considered the problems that are affecting the people. The large number of people are using WhatsApp and Viber to speak to their relations in the Middle East, and then the small and medium scale businessmen, they were doing business through various communication strategies used by them. And then tourists who were coming here, they were affected. So we took all those things into consideration before we considered taking the restrictions out. And yesterday we did this with Viber and we watched the situation, and things are not going bad, I should say. And in the meantime, we will be considering how we can have some monitoring of the Facebook also. Once again, we request people who are using these communication tools not to misuse them, not to create problems for us, provoke people to do things against various religious groups, ethnic groups, racial groups, certain groups of people in the society.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the government is focusing on introducing a set of laws geared towards regulating social media platforms in the country, while expressing the need to control extremist campaigns and hate speech through social media. The Prime Minister also added that the social media ban came into effect following a request by security units.
There was unrest in the area of Theldenia and Digana last Monday. Usually, these kinds of situations are brought under control within the day. But in the case of last week, although the situation was controlled by Monday evening, things erupted again by next morning. Security officials requested us to block the usage of social media platforms temporarily. We then took measures to block social media platforms on Tuesday. And by Wednesday, the security officials told us that they were able to control the situation. They emphasized that things would have worsened if we didn't block social media platforms. Nobody wants to ban the usage of social media platforms. But these sites should be monitored and properly regulated. That's why a team of employees from Facebook are going to come to the country tomorrow to have these discussions. We will also discuss as to how extremist social media campaigns that lead to unrest in the country can be removed. And these social media platforms are still not under any international convention or law. A lot of governments around the world are also discussing what they can do about it. The Sri Lankan government, Attorney General's Department as well as the Ministry of Law and Order are now looking at a set of laws to be introduced in this regard.
Alliance for Muslim Rights calls on the government to take legal measures against ministers who are spreading extremist ideologies in the society. Secretary of the Alliance, Abdul Aziz, made the request at a media briefing held in Colombo today.
There's a group of people in this country who nourished violence and extremism. They wrote books such as Al-Jihad, Al-Qaeda, Allahu Abba, and statements like Adasanda Kaluvara. Through these publications, they created a suspicion among the majority community regarding the minority of the country. The ministers who did that are now with the current government. They also created groups which can influence the society. And now these ministers can't even control these groups which can influence others. These ministers are the ones that should be arrested. Their publications must be banned. Be aware of the people who spread such views among communities. We urge the government not to consider views by these ministers when making decisions. I am telling you very clearly that the lack of unity lies not with different communities, but with politicians and power-seeking NGOs.
Meanwhile, the organisation Sinhala Rave filed a complaint today at the National Police Commission against the Commission itself, claiming that it has failed to launch a proper investigation into the Kandy unrest.
Unfortunately, the Police Commission says that they can't launch an investigation as the complaint has not yet been filed. We urge the government not to invest in such useless institutions. And then intelligence officers aren't properly working because they think they will go through the same fate as those who were in Valikada prison.
Meanwhile, parliamentarian Ravi Karunanayake today visited the families who lost their loved ones during the recent unrest in Kandy. The parliamentarian promised to pay a 20,000 rupee monthly allowance to the families of the truck driver who died following an assault and the youth who died in the area of Kengala during the unrest. Meanwhile, views were expressed today as well on the recent unrest in several areas of the Kandy district.
We don't talk about the no confidence motion anymore. We also don't talk about the bond scam or the unrest in Derana because the focus is now on Facebook. That is the talk of the town today. This hybrid government thinks that it can continue like this. The government is not against extremism. They use it. They did not arrest the murder suspects until violence erupted in the area. Police spokesperson said that they were unable to control when masses gathered on the streets. But they have the power to attack farmers when they were in the streets. This government set up a new ministry on reconciliation and Minister Mano Ganesan heads it. Former President Chandrika Bandaranaike also joined in the process. But there is no reconciliation even between the two of them. And they are trying to reconcile communities in the country.
Let's take you straight to Japan now. President Maithripala Sirisena met the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe and engaged in bilateral discussions. The president is currently in Japan on a state visit, and during the discussions, the Japanese Prime Minister pledged to provide grants to Sri Lanka at every possible juncture. Moreover, a new agreement on health service was also inked during the meeting. The discussions were held at the Japanese Premier's office today.
President Maithripala Sirisena and the Sri Lankan delegation was welcomed at the Japanese Prime Minister's office with a guard of honour also accorded. Bilateral discussions then commenced and the Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe pledged to provide grants at every possible time and to continue the assistance given for the development of infrastructure facilities in Sri Lanka. The assistance on developing Colombo and Trincomalee ports was also discussed. The Japanese Prime Minister pledged support to the garbage management programs and the disaster management in Sri Lanka. Premier Abe reminded the support given by Japan to Sri Lanka for naval activities and said that Sri Lanka is the only recipient of such support in the Indian Ocean. The two leaders engaged in lengthy discussions on improving economical and trade ties, and the President emphasized the need for contribution from both state and private sectors when investing in Sri Lanka. Moreover, a new agreement on Japanese Sri Lanka health services too was inked during the meeting. In the meantime, earlier in the day, President Maithripala Sirisena made an observational tour of a modern waste management center in Shinagawa in Tokyo. President Sirisena said that he would inquire about such projects in order to solve the garbage disposal problem in Sri Lanka and would seek the possibility of obtaining assistance from Japan for such projects. In the meantime, President Maithripala Sirisena met with the Sri Lankan community living in Japan yesterday.
If we didn't ban Facebook temporarily, clashes could have spread across Sri Lanka. Although some said that Facebook has no pull, when we banned this for 1 week, the heads of big companies in the world complained, saying it's a loss for them. Daily income of government institutions such as Telecom and TRC, however, increased by 200 million. I told those companies that we'll come to an agreement on controlling such incidents and to ensure national security. The government hopes to introduce a plan that suits the country in the future.
Minister of Provincial Council and Local Government Faisal Mustafa intends to present the new delimitation report pertaining to the upcoming Provincial Council election in Parliament on the 21st of this month. The minister said this while addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today.
Question is the Parliament has to decide whether they are happy with this delimitation report or not. But there is also a concern that 50-50 should be changed. So they have been run by the governors until we hold the election. So we are going to hold the election soon. This whole process of the delimitation report was to hold the election. So we are trying.
They said it before as well. All the opposition can say is that the election is being delayed. Fortunately for me, the responsibility of the provincial councils was given to the Parliament. What I have to do is to present the delimitation report in Parliament after receiving it and then get the 2/3 required to pass it in the Parliament. If it doesn't happen, there is a committee chaired by the Prime Minister and they will hand it over to the President to be gazetted.
Also in local news, joint opposition calls on the government to hold elections for 3 provincial councils before the 31st of March, as they are already on extended terms. Addressing a media briefing in Colombo today, the joint opposition added that elections are a paramount requirement in Eastern, North Central and Sabaragamuwa provinces.
The given time for the provincial councils by the Provincial Council Amendment Act expires on the 31st of March. Provinces of East, North Central and Sabaragamuwa are governed by the provincial governors. No proper budget is passed and the Supreme Court has determined that a province being administered by a governor is not suitable. Election Commission should announce elections by the 31st of March. The delimitation report on provincial councils should be finalized by then. If there is a regime at present, we question that regime whether they would hold the election. The recent communal conflict reeks of a conspiracy. The proposed no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister was overshadowed. He failed to keep his promise to bringing back Arjuna Mahindran, who is evading police. In such a scenario, this communal conflict springs up, and that is the conspiracy. If anyone benefits from the incident, it is only Mr. Ranil Wickremesinghe. The agitation which prevailed against him cooled down to some extent. We should resolve these conflicts soon and should attend to important matters of the country. Then the priority goes to the central bank incident and the main suspect should be produced before court. It was delayed due to the present situation of the country. We are working on it and we will bring it when our auspicious time comes.
The Mahajana Rajya Sabha requests the President to take any possible measures that can be taken to abolish the Enforced Disappearance Act. Its members expressed these views addressing a media briefing held in Colombo today.
They try to pass several acts which are harmful for the country, but are called for by foreign nations to destabilize the country. We don't see the opposition objecting to them. When Karujai Surya said that time is over and it should be passed, no one objected. They should have at least left after setting fire to the documents, saying that they oppose it if they aren't given time to express views. Therefore, we accuse the joint opposition. We express our displeasure over the government and the opposition for this act of treachery in contributing to pass the Act of International Covenant Against Terrorism. Therefore, we request the Speaker Karujai Surya not to sign it. We also request the President to take any necessary measure that can be taken to abolish this, remove the Office of Missing Persons from this country and stop hunting war heroes who protected the country.
In the meantime, the session on Sri Lanka at the United Nations Human Rights Council will be held on the 21st of this month.
Retired Rear Admiral Sarath Veerasekara yesterday handed over a petition to UNHRC President Walking Alexander Mazzamateli requesting that action be taken against Human Rights High Commissioner Said bin Rad Zaid Al Hussein and Special Envoy Monica Pinto for forcing Sri Lanka towards constitutional reforms basing their reports on false information and bias. Addressing the session of the UNHRC yesterday, retired Rear Admiral Veerasekara said both reports admitted based on preconceived and predetermined notions were full of contradictions and also violated the norms included in the UN Charter. He said, quote, I regret to say that both these reports are based and are full of lies. The OISL panel and the Special Envoy have based their findings merely on hearsay and gossip and had violated the norms of the UN Charter, unquote. He further says the UNHRC should treat Sri Lankan war heroes in the same way in which it views war heroes in Great Britain and the United States and not differentiate against them. Let's now take a look at some other stories happening around Sri Lanka.
The OIC of the Sidua Police Crimes Division, who was taken into custody by the Commission for Bribery and Corruption for accepting a bribe of 25,000 rupees, is remanded. Our correspondent said that the Colombo Magistrates Court ordered the OIC to be remanded until the 28th of this month. The Colombo High Court gave the death penalty to a man today who was convicted of possessing approximately 14.6 grams of heroin and for trafficking. The man was taken into custody on the 4th of October in 2008 by the Police Narcotics Bureau in the area of Kalubowila. The Department of Immigration and Immigration today arrested 23 Indian nationals, including a woman, who were engaged in employment in violation of the conditions of their visas. The department said that they were arrested in 3 locations in the area of Hettividya in Colombo this morning. The crimes unit of the Kalutara district yesterday arrested an individual who had been manufacturing illegal firearms. Upon further questioning, several firearms which were found hidden in a house in the area of Arachimulla in Bentara were also seized.
Watching Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Derana 24/7.
Welcome back, everyone. The Little Hearts project of Manusat Derana got another boost recently, with Maxis International donating 1 million rupees to the project. The donation was handed over to Chairman of Derana TV, Dilip Javira, and Professor Harindra De Silva of the Sri Lanka Pediatricians College of Lady Ridgeway Children's Hospital, which supervises the project. It was done during the Maxis Awards Night of 2017, which was held with the participation of over 350 Maxis dealers and guests under the patronage of Vice President of Maxis International in Taiwan, Lenny Lee. Awards were presented to dealers for their performances for the year 2017.
And moving up, great. In recognition of that, we are going to repeat black and white here. Now it's time.
The devotees that were selected for the program Dambadiva Vandana, organized by FM Derana, move on to the mountain Durgeshwari, situated in Bihar province, where Tapasa Siddhartha practiced self-mortification for 6 years before becoming the Lord Buddha. Before embarking for the mountain, they paid homage to the Isipathana Migadaya. The devotees are scheduled to pay homage to Bodh Gaya next. The 5th phase of the program Dambadiva Vandana, organized by FM Derana, is now in progress.
You are watching Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Derana 24/7.
Let's take you to the stock market now. The all share price index closed 0.54% weaker on 6,519.48 today, and the turnover was 1.6 billion rupees, more than this year's daily average of around 973.3 million rupees. We now have an update from RM Sivanandan for a detailed market update.
The turnover was 1,566.55 million rupees with 64.29 million shares changing hands in 5,396 trades. The market capitalization at the end of the day was 3,043.97 billion rupees. Today there were 13 crossings and the crossing turnover was 995.62 million rupees. Today's foreign purchases was 482.05 million rupees and the foreign sales was 665.36 million rupees.
Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
On to international news now. UK Prime Minister Theresa May said today that Britain will expel 23 Russian diplomats after Moscow failed to explain how a Russian-made nerve agent was used to poison an ex-spy and his daughter in the English city of Salisbury. The move marks the largest expulsion of diplomats from Britain since the Cold War, and May said that her government will cancel all high-level bilateral contacts with Russia.
British Premier Theresa May spoke after Moscow ignored a midnight deadline to explain how a nerve agent developed by the Soviet Union was used against Sergei and Yulia Skripal. The father and daughter remain in critical condition in a hospital in Salisbury, southwestern England, after they were found slumped unconscious on a park bench on March 4th. The Kremlin rejected British claims that it was involved in the poisoning incident and said it would not accept any British ultimatum over the issue.
But to those who seek to do us harm, my message is simple. You are not welcome here. As I said on Monday, we have had a very simple approach to Russia: engage but beware. And I continue to believe it is not in our national interest to break off all dialogue between the United Kingdom and the Russian Federation. But in the aftermath of this appalling act against our country, this relationship cannot be the same. So we will suspend all planned high-level bilateral contacts between the United Kingdom and the Russian Federation. This includes revoking the invitation to Foreign Minister Lavrov to pay a reciprocal visit to the UK and confirming there will be no attendance by ministers or indeed members of the royal family at this summer's World Cup in Russia. We will deploy a range of tools from across the full breadth of our national security apparatus in order to counter the threats of hostile state activity. We have no disagreement with the people of Russia. We wanted a better relationship, and it is tragic that President Putin has chosen to act in this way.
Angela Merkel has been sworn in as Germany's Chancellor for the fourth time, almost 6 months since the national election, bringing to an end the longest power hiatus in the country's post-war history. Germany's parliament earlier approved her re-election by 364 votes to 315. As Germany's next leader, the conservative Merkel will govern in a grand coalition with the Social Democrats.
After nearly 6 months since the election, Angela Merkel vowed to get to work quickly as the longest period of coalition building in post-war Germany came to an end. After the September 24th election, Merkel's Christian Democrats and the Social Democrats had its worst result in almost 70 years. But she finally secured a coalition deal with the Social Democrats earlier this month, following a painful stretch of political deadlock. In the German parliament, there were flowers, smiles, congratulations for Angela Merkel, and there was also a sense of relief with the end of nearly 6 months of almost unprecedented political turmoil for Germany. The 63-year-old Merkel will now begin her fourth term as German Chancellor and her third as the leader of a grand coalition.
On to sports now. Bangladesh are currently in pursuit of 177 runs against India in the fifth match of the Tri-Nation Series Nidahas Trophy at the R. Premadasa Stadium in Colombo. After being put into bat, India piled on 176 runs for the loss of 3 wickets, with the top 3 batsmen putting in a shift. Openers Rohit Sharma and Shikhar Dhawan posted 89 and 35 runs respectively, while Suresh Raina chipped in with 47 at number 3. Chasing 177, Bangladesh didn't get off to the best of starts and the innings started. They were 73 for the loss of 4 wickets just a short while ago.
Slow ball.
Big match fever is set to hit this weekend as well, with Derana College facing Mahanama College in the 12th Battle of the Goals. Also, the 112th Battle of the Maroons in Kandy between Kingswood College and Dharmapala College will also take to the field this weekend.
Derana College and Mahanama College are set to lock horns in the 12th Battle of the Goals on the 16th and 17th at the Pisara Oval. Meanwhile, the 12th Battle of the Maroons Kandy is set to take place at the Pallekele International Stadium between Kingswood College and Dharmapala College.
Now here's Manusha with the weather.
A very good evening and welcome to Forecast First. The low pressure zone that was hovering over the southern and western sea areas of the island has now moved a few hundred kilometers away from the country. Although the weather system is moving towards the Arabian Sea, sea areas in the western part of the country will be rather turbulent. This is why the Met Department advises fishermen not to venture into the deep sea areas off the coast extending from Putlam to Galle. Your temperatures will vary between 20 to 30 degrees Celsius over the next 24 hours. Showers can be expected particularly in Hambantota and Matara districts, as well as northwestern, central and Sabaragamu provinces. Well, that's it from your weather center tonight. Up next is your city by city forecast.
And that is a part of your world tonight right here on Ada Derana 24/7. First at 9 will return tomorrow at the same time with the very latest in local, international, base sports and weather. Before we end tonight, we would like to treat all ornithology fans. There are 452 species which are resident, of which 33 are endemic birds in Sri Lanka, and about 30 national parks and sanctuaries around Sri Lanka to preserve these birds. Enjoy and good night.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Ada Derana 24/7.